Welcome back to a new and highly disturbing twist in Metro Vancouver's housing affordability crisis. Local landlords are placing ads looking for desperate young women willing to pay for rent with their bodies. Here's John Woodward with a hidden camera investigation.
Yeah, nice to meet you, and thank you for coming here.
He's a landlord looking for a new tenant.
It's really expensive to live here.
But the rent he's charging for his Burnaby basement suite might surprise you.
You like to be on top, or you like to be in charge, or?
You know, this and that.
That's right, it's a rent for sex offer, and it's not the only one in Metro Vancouver's overheated housing market. Dozens of online ads promised free rent for a price. One says, I'm offering for free a room in exchange for your time. Others are more explicit, saying rent is free if you're willing to be my sexy slut. To find out what's behind these ads, CTV News went undercover as a young woman named April Lim. We met this man near Metrotown.
Like what kinds of things we'd be doing together?
Spend the night together, yeah.
Later on the phone, he's more specific.
We can have our after sex maybe in the living room, yeah, on the sofa.
Another ad offers a free room share for a nice, clean person. And when we meet the author in downtown Vancouver, he tells us plenty of desperate renters are interested.
So a lot of people have emailed you, though.
I didn't know this. One more.
Wow.
He says the room share is actually a bed share in a Burrard Street condo, and the tenancy will last only as long as April is willing to have sex.
Nice person looks nice, but it's other than like a weird rules.
Oh, no, don't worry.
I can say, sorry, please.
I'm really outraged. I'm disgusted.
Louisa Russell of Vancouver Rape Relief says more women are agreeing to these terms because Vancouver's escalating rents give them no choice.
We also receive calls from women phoning us, complaining about predatory landlords.
Under Canada's new prostitution laws, selling sex is not illegal, but buying it is. Neither of these men responded to our attempts to interview them, though one texted us to say he found a benefit friend for the bed share. Russell wants governments to work harder on cooling housing prices and for the police to crack down to make sure women aren't trading sex for an affordable place to live. John Woodward, CTV News, Vancouver.
Gosh, just shocking that that is happening. And joining us now with more is CTV's John Woodward and Grace Lee, who is another staff member with us here at CTV. Thanks, both of you, for joining us this morning. And Grace, you were the one who went undercover in the story that we saw there. Great job, by the way.
Thank you.
You went undercover to meet these men. What was that experience like for you?
Well, it was a little bit frightening to meet these people in person, but I had John in my corner, and we also had our cameraman, Todd, who was always there with me. And I guess what really drove me was the fact that I really wanted to know why these men were doing what they were doing. And so going undercover is always a bit of a scary experience.
No doubt.
But we ended up meeting these men and kind of getting to know this whole phenomenon that's happening. And, you know, we found out that police aren't doing much about it, and they're kind of aware of it. And we spoke to a couple of advocates, too, who told us more about the situation.
Yeah, and so, I mean, you talk to people, you know, who, there's obviously a problem here, and there are people out there who are desperate for a place to live. They want to have a roof over their heads. They're willing to at least inquire about, you know, this being involved in this kind of situation. What are some of the risks involved in someone who's even considering something like that?
I mean, I guess we could both speak to that, but advocates and even a law professor is telling us that these women, they're putting themselves at a kind of high-risk situation and giving these men a lot of power over them because they're, you know, they're dealing with their landlords, and it's, you know, it's either they have sex and have a place to stay or they get kicked out, and that's really difficult in Vancouver's current housing climate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it shouldn't be understated how expensive it is to really find a place in Vancouver, and that puts women who may not be able to afford it in a very vulnerable position. The stats that we were able to find show that Vancouver is the most expensive housing market in Canada. You're looking at $1,700 a month for the median price for a one-bedroom in this city, which is far and away the worst in the country. The vacancy rate sits at 0.6%. Which is, again, the lowest in the country. It's many percent lower than a place like Montreal, where somebody in this situation would at least have a reasonable choice of finding an affordable place that they could pay for, without having to consider this awful alternative.
And we saw in the story that these landlords were getting lots of emails, or so they said, from women who were apparently quite willing to exchange sex for a roof over their head or a bed to sleep in. Do we know how widespread this problem is? Like, do we know how many people are actually doing this?
It's hard to know how many people. There's no way that we can give you a firm number on something like that, but I remember going into this thinking, we'll find the odd person. It might be a little bit hard to find somebody, because I'm sure most landlords out there are reputable, and I think they are. But when we go onto those online ads, it pops up all the time, dozens a day, literally dozens a day, ads asking for this. A lot of them with coded language, but they're actually getting more courageous. They're putting it more explicitly. One of those ads you saw in there said, "If you're willing to be my sexy slut." It's hard to misread exactly what that's about.
Yeah, it's pretty clear what they're after there. It's shocking. So the police, what are they doing about this? Are they cracking down on it? Are they investigating? What's happening here?
So I had a long chat with Constable Brian Montague yesterday, who's the spokesperson for the Vancouver Police Department, and he said the VPD are aware of this, but they look at this as a resource issue. They say if this is two consenting adults, if they get themselves into that arrangement, there's little the police are going to do about it, even though buying the sex is illegal. However, he said, if there's somebody in that situation right now who is being exploited, who is maybe being unlawfully confined, or at worst sexually assaulted, they should get in touch with the police, because that is a specific victim scenario, and they're going to investigate that.
And you don't want to be in that situation. All right, both of you, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Great story. And we want to know what you think. Join in the conversation. Send us a tweet at CTV Morning Live, and you can watch this segment again on our website, ctvmorninglive.ca.